What's up, everyone? It's your boy Scott. Welcome to the Scott Report, and today I'm here to give you my first impressions of Somali and the Forest Spirit. And the winter season has barely started, and already my heart is stolen. I can tell I'm really going to like this series because first and foremost, just kicking right into it and getting right down to the heart of the matter. This series is just absolutely beautiful. Fantasy is back. The atmosphere, the visuals, and just the look and feel of this series is just so warm, so heartwarming, so unique, and so different. And one thing that I like that this series is doing the most is that it has that winter vibe going. It fits the winter time. And usually when you have a story that takes place like in a forest or something like that, and something that's going to be hard not to compare this series to is Ancient Magus' Bride, is that when you look at a series like Somali and the Forest Spirit, you just have a lot of things that reminded you of Ancient Magus' Bride as far as the setting, the atmosphere, being in the forest, and just fantasy series and whenever they take place in the forest, and whenever it's like kind of cold out, whenever it's a fall environment, whenever it's the winter time, you just always just have that warm, snuggly type of feel that you should just get you a cup of cocoa or some tea or something, just sit back, relax, and be enthralled with this series. And this is what it's doing so far. And just right out of the bat, because this is a first impression, I can tell you guys this first episode was outstanding. Visually, I will say it again, it was absolutely beautiful. Just that first opening set, those first opening minutes with the golem walking through the forest and how they just had the sunlight beaming down and how it looked and everything, I was just looking like, wow, this could very well be one of the most visually impressive series of the fall season already. I like when a studio has an idea of when a series is going to drop, and I don't know if this is intentional or not, but it just felt right with this series with Somali, and something that we saw as well last winter season, what we saw with Boogie Pop and others. Even though I have my reservations about how I felt about that series, it did fit the winter tone. It was like it looked like it was taking place like during the fall winter season when things were just cooling off, the weather would start to change. And I think it was a couple of actual episodes that took place in the winter time, and Somali is doing that again here. I just like when a series has that type of awareness, because it's kind of like they want you to say you should be watching this in the winter time, and the winter time always kicks off the season, and it's always just a certain things that you kind of look for in anime. And winter season always is the calm before the storm per se, because the spring season is always usually hype, but that kind of changed last year, while the winter season just kind of eases you in. And if you're looking for something heartwarming, then look no further than Somali, because at base value, this is going to be a very genuine series. This is going to be a very heartfelt series. Now, it does have the potential to get dark. I can see that, and we'll get to that in a bit. But as of right now, I just watched this entire episode with a big smile on my face, just with Somali and the golem and the type of relationship that they have coming in, with the father-daughter type of relationship. It was just heartwarming. She's like this naive kid, while the golem is just like the stern father figure that you always see in these type of series, and his mission is to protect them. So while we're on that point, let's go ahead and get into a little bit of what the series is about. And also a note, before we dive into this too far, this is actually premiering a week early, and probably by the time this video come out, it'll be coming out in the next few days. But Crunchyroll decided to launch it actually a week early, so it looks like it's actually still going to be on Thursdays, but Crunchyroll decided to put it out early anyway. So Somali and the Forest Spirit, first and foremost, we have I guess you could say he's our main character, who's the golem. He is a forest spirit whose job is to observe, protect, and make sure everything is in balance. Make sure everything is perfectly balanced in the forest that he's in. It's his lifelong mission. It's what he was sought to do. It's what he was built to do. And he's content with that. He's content with protecting and maintaining the balance in the forest until his life force is gone. And of course, things don't go that well. Well, I won't say they won't go that well. Things might actually have a change for the better for him, because as he's out one day walking around, and just like I said, he's like, this is my job. This is what I'm going to do until I die. He actually runs into this young girl in the forest. Her name is Somali, and she's actually, has chains, and she's in captivity, because that brings things to what we're looking at here. Humanity is at a extinctive state in this series. It's kind of a mystery of how she even got there. Like, did she escape? Did somebody leave her there? Because humans are in a bad mood. You will see as you get into this episode and we get into the backstory that many centuries, moons ago, humanity crossed over into the demon world, or not demon world, these are more creatures. They didn't say they're demons, they said they were creatures and spirits, or they don't really have a name for it yet, or I guess we can go with creature or supernatural world for right now. Humanity found out this world exists, they went over there, and humans, being scum and the jackasses that humans are, they were like, huh, this place is full of creatures, and boy, are they ugly and stupid. How about that? Well, why don't we just take it over like we do everything else, because that is always the role that humanity is placed in. However, I like the twist that this series did, because the creatures, they wasn't having it. They were like, wait a minute, these people are stupid, they're smaller than us, they're feeble, and they have the right to be disrespectful to us too? Okay, so we're just going to go to war and take all of you guys over. And, war waged for a couple of years and humanity actually lost. Humanity has been pushed to the brink of extinction, and the ones that are around are either eaten by these demons or they're put in as slaves. And it's an interesting feel. I mean, you usually don't see that type of environment when it comes to a series or an anime. It's usually like the demons or the creatures. I keep saying demons because I keep thinking of Promised Neverland and everything else when we see this type of nature, but they're creatures. They're usually fighting back against humanity. Humanity is the one that's at stake in this series, and it's a little bit unique because it has a different type of feel to it as well, because like when the golem is in the city with Somali, and the creatures, they're just talking about it just in a roundabout way, like, yeah, remember the story of how these stupid humans came over and we just enslaved them? Boy, I want to eat one of those right now. It's just so calm and so nonchalant about it. Also, with humanity being in the state that it's in right now, that leaves the golem in a place as well where he has to protect this girl. He's vowed to protect this human girl, but humans aren't the type of thing that you would want around in this universe at the moment. So he has to conceal her identity, but at the same time, he has to take care of her. He has to make sure she's fed. They have to go into the city at some point to get resources and things of the like. So the little hoodie that she has on with the horns is actually her disguise, because that's how she masquerades through the world with the golem as a human. But I mean, come on, at the end of the day, it really is just a hoodie. I mean, somebody probably is going to like sniff her out or find out like, wait a minute, this isn't a little creature. This is a human with a golem, because a golem has his own type of persona or way about him that the people of this world know what he is. They're like, wait a minute, you're a golem. You're a forest protector. What are you doing out in the city? And, he has to say, I'm, shopping, I'm looking for humans and things of the like. But it was a very interesting turn to actually see, this humanity being put in the state that they're in, just mocked at by these creatures. It's kind of funny because, whenever we have a story like this, humans are always painted as the bad guys, and you kind of look at it like they deserve it. But at the same time, it doesn't make it right either for people to be like enslaved and eaten and things like that. We've seen this in Promised Neverland. It's one of the biggest things in Promised Neverland with the demons. And while I'm thinking about why I keep saying demons in this series, they eat humans, but do they really have to? It's kind of the same thing here, even though at the moment it's more of a lighter tone of, do these creatures really need to eat onto humanity? Who knows? It's not right. It's not right for humans to do what they did. It's not right for the creatures to do what they did. So maybe at some point, maybe that'll be a central point in the series, to have some type of coexistence or a peaceful one. The golem is put in a certain situation himself because he is tasked with taking care of this little girl who immediately calls him dad when she sees him. So, that's a big responsibility for him to take on. But he also is very resourceful. He's very stern. He's very good at what he does. Like when he was in the town, you can't swindle this guy because he has like this thing that opens up in his eye shows, and he has the ability to see the integrity or the structure into anything. So he can't be swindled by any other barkeepers. Something else that is very interesting about him is that he doesn't have any emotions, but you can kind of see that armor cracking down a little bit, or maybe he does have emotions, he's just not aware of it. One of the favorite parts that I had of this episode is when Somali's actually in the town and she sees the little creature kids with their parents and they're holding hands and things like that, and you can just feel that she longs for that type of affection or attention from the golem that he just doesn't know how to express. It's not that he doesn't care, he just doesn't know how to express it, but he is willing to learn. So just her longing for being able to hold hands with him, it's just so heartwarming. That's something I can use a lot about this series. And he actually does get down to it at the end. He was like, well, this is something that humans do. I mean, I've been around for a while to know how they operate, how they react, and I'm just gonna hold my finger, hold my hand, and this is going to keep you in check, because if you get out of my sight, it's going to be very bad. So the golem is aware of humans and things that's at stake if Somali's ever found out. But at the same time, you can kind of see that as maybe his armor, or maybe he does have feelings, because even at the point where they thought they were going to be discovered, he was doing what he did to protect them. But Somali was like, you were scared, wasn't you? He's like, I don't have feelings. I don't get scared. But I think it's a little bit more to that. I mean, I will actually go out on a limb to say that perhaps maybe he was human at one point, or maybe he did have emotions, and maybe this whole thing of him being this forest protector and having these abilities has something with him to do with him losing his humanity. I mean, it's just episode 1, so we don't have the world building or the things that we need for the series yet. We usually get that in the second episode. But that was, again, my favorite part of the episode, to see the emotions that you can see that's going to be there and what's going to build with Somali and the Golem, and how they're going to love and care for each other, and how we're going to love and care for them too going in the series. I mean, it's episode 1 and I've already care about, protecting this precious being who is Somali, and I kind of feel like the Golem too. Like, look, you need to chill out, you need to stay by me, we need to stay safe, so this is what we're going to do. And it's a very lighthearted series, again, at the beginning, like, because everything is just so happy and nonchalant, especially with Somali and her naivete, with her chasing the cat around and things like that. It's things that a kid would do, and then you have this Golem who's like, look, I need to protect you, you need to stay safe. But at the same time, it's kind of like a caring way as well. It's like he's not a mean person at all, and I'm pretty sure he has the potential to be. He's a protector for a reason. But when it comes to this little girl, he's just like the biggest cupcake you can find, and I like that. I really like that. Again, hard to not compare this to Ancient Magus' Bride, because that's kind of what we've seen in that series as well. And I think this series has the potential to be just as big, if not bigger, especially with it being on Crunchyroll, for it to get the exposure that it needs. And something else that I really like about this series is that it is straight up fantasy. I must say that fantasy is back, and I'm glad to see true fantasy come into light, things like this series, shows like Grand Blue Fantasy per se, and even though it is an isekai ascendance of a bookworm, series like that are deep rooted into the fantasy roots, because for the past decade or more, whenever we're putting into a series like this or some type of fantasy setting, it's an isekai, it's another world experience. But with Somali, we are actually deep rooted into a world that's being built to be an actual fantasy, and that's a genre that's dying. That hurts me a lot, because two of my favorite franchises, or two of my favorite genres, is actually mecha and fantasy, and both of those are on the brink of extinction when it comes to anime, and it's all thanks to isekai, who takes all of the elements and just put it into another world, somebody being in a game or something like that. But even the opening for this series is just straight up fantasy. It's just like with the old strings and the chorus and the flow of the opening, it just sounds like a song you would hear in like Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit or something like that. This is deep rooted fantasy, and I'm glad to see it. It's a breath of fresh air, because the anime world needs fantasy again, because if you go back to the 80s and 90s and how deep fantasy was back then, and especially now with people being more accepting of being an otaku and things like Dungeons and Dragons and of the like, it's good to see just straight up fantasy and not one as in another world type of setting. Overall, I just liked a lot of things that this first episode of Somali and the Forest Spirit gave us, and I'm already in. I'm gonna go past the 3-episode test, but I would say for you guys, I would say give it 3 episodes to see where it goes. I mean, the first episode was amazing as far as the beauty, as far as the flow, as far as getting the feel of the characters and the characters that you should care about in their relationship. If you liked Ancient Magus' Bride, you're gonna like this series too. And we'll have to see where it goes. Usually, it's something that I always say each and every time I do one of these first impressions, or I'll start doing the episode review or discussion. The second episode is always the episode where they're going to slow down, they're going to explain the world, they're going to build things and let you know the world you're getting into, while the first episode is more of an introduction. And I can say that Somali and the Forest Spirit really did knock it out when it came to a first impression. It blew my socks off, and if this is what we have to look forward to for the winter season, we're in for a great season already, and that's a great way to start the anime season for 2020 and the new decade as well, because it looks like we could very well have a series that's going to be talked about far beyond the season. I believe it is locked in for 12 episodes now as well, so it's going to be a short run, or more of a common run, because anime is at that point now where we are getting more 2-core anime. I think 3 and 4-core anime is still a little bit rare, but it's not uncommon for a series. You just kind of expect for a series to only have 12 episodes, then we wait on the season 2. I'm really intrigued with this world. There is a big secret that the Golem is holding that I am not going to get into because I don't want to spoil. We'll save that for episode 2. I'm going to go ahead and get up out of here, guys. So that's my first impression of Somali and the Forest Spirit. I give it 2 thumbs up. Definitely recommend you guys check it out. It is a very good first impression. It definitely makes me want to watch more and see more. And what a way to start the anime season, just with just having your heartstrings just pulled on and tugged and put in a nice little blanket for the winter season to keep you warm. So if you liked the video, go ahead and drop that like. And if you want to hear more, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, as I try to upload as often as I can. But as I always say, you guys can be anywhere on YouTube right now, but you chose to listen to me. I really appreciate that, so thanks for stopping by. On that note, it's your boy Scott signing out. See you soon.